Good morning. I wanted to welcome everybody to the second session of Clean Edge's Clean Tech Nation briefing series. Hi, I'm Bryce Yonker, and I'm Clean Edge's Director of Business Development, and we're really excited to have everybody here today. We have 450 participants registered, so we're looking forward to a really lively discussion with lots of folks from around the world. Ron Pernick, our Managing Director, will be moderating today's conversation. But before we get into it, I wanted to just mention a few quick housekeeping notes. Everybody today is in listen-only mode, but we do want it to be a very active and engaged session. So if you have any questions, please type those into the question field, and we will be going through those and addressing as many as we possibly can. And those that we're unable to address during today's conversation, we'll see if we can follow up with you afterward. So simply type them in there. We'll be looking through them, and we'll be getting to those throughout the session. So thanks for being on. We look forward to a good discussion, and I'm going to hand it over to Clean Edge's Managing Director, Ron Pernick. He's going to be taking us through the session today.
Thanks, Bryce, and welcome everyone to today's webinar on smart water, reinventing the management and use of H2O. We're very grateful to have with us three amazing panelists to help us delve into this timely and important topic. I'm confident we'll all walk away with a much better understanding of some of the key issues facing individuals, companies, and governments, as well as the many innovations that can help drive change in the water landscape. And that's really on both the supply and demand side. With us today are Israeli water expert and innovator Booky Oren, water business leader Tamin Pechet of Imagine H2O, Banyan Water, and Lux Research, and Autodesk Global Clean Tech Program Manager Susan Gladwin. Here's how today's webinar will work. First, we'll launch into a moderated conversation with the panelists, and then as Bryce mentioned, we'll open up to questions from the audience. Please be sure to type your questions into the chat dialog box, and as Bryce said, we'll do our best to cover as many queries as possible. Before we begin, I really need to express our great thanks to our co-host of this series and today's webinar, Autodesk. Autodesk has been a true industry leader in forwarding clean tech initiatives across the nation and globe. I'd like to hand over the podium now to our co-host, Susan Gladwin.
Thank you so much, Ron. And we are really delighted to be able to co-host this webinar on water with you today. As you know, Autodesk is a world leader in design and engineering software, and we are committed to accelerating clean tech development across the globe. And we do this by investing millions of dollars worth of our software over the last number of years in emerging clean tech companies. We do this through a program called the Autodesk Clean Tech Partner Program, and the URL is there on the screen, autodesk.com/cleantech. Any company in Europe, North America, Japan, and Singapore who can use our software can apply at that website very simply. We just really want to hear from you and be able to understand what your needs are. And we provide up to $150,000 worth of our software for only $50, and there's really no strings attached. We have thousands of companies who are benefiting from getting this software, using it to visualize and analyze and simulate their solutions before they're real. And we'll be talking about a few of them today. So thank you, Ron, and back to you.
Thank you, Susan. And just so you all know, I know many companies that have applied and gone accepted, and it's been a great support to their business. Now we're going to jump into the interactive dialogue. Booky, I was very excited to be able to get you onto this webinar. You've been in numerous roles addressing water delivery in water-scarce regions around the world. We'll be covering many different ideas and concepts in the next hour, but I'm wondering if you can help us set the stage around water and the role of tech policy and finance innovation. In particular, how has Israel dealt with its own water shortages and really reinvented itself in the process? And I know you only have a couple minutes in this first setup, but what are some of the lessons other nations might be able to learn?
First of all, thank you again for this opportunity to share the world with our humble experience. It's really great honor. But going back immediately to dive into the issue, I can share the audience that Israel has a major challenge because we are located on the desert border. We don't have enough rainfall, but 2013 is a major fascinating year for us. This will be the first year that we declare that we solve our water challenge based on technology, meaning that Israel has enough water based on a comprehensive approach that we implement here in the last decade. Combine recycled water, desalination, water management, and we move from the era of collecting rainfall to the era of where we're producing enough water for our needs, and we are fully independent from any drought that will happen here in the coming few years. And for us, it's great news. And I think that for the world, it's great news, as it's a very good example how a specific location in the world implement technologies, innovative technologies, and solve its problem or challenges. But now I think that we are coping with the next challenge. So after we have enough supply, so we overcome our supply management, we are moving very aggressively to dealing with the demand management. How to conserve water, how to operate our infrastructure in a better manner, and in that way we understood that we cannot solve it alone. So now we are approaching to the global sector and looking for more and more entrepreneurs that will approach to us with their proven solution. And I found myself spending a lot of time with American companies like Global Water Resources from Phoenix or Newer or Xylem that have spent a lot of time here in Israel sharing with us their ideas and their innovative solutions. We open our facilities as a platform for entrepreneurs that they can check here all their innovation. And now we try to implement it in other locations in the world. This model, we call it the WATEC model. We initiated first time in 2004, and now we try to partner with our Canadian partner in OCWA, the Ontario Clean Water Agency, in Las Vegas, and the Southern Nevada Water Agency in Cincinnati, in Akron, Ohio. So we think that partnership and implement technology is the next role. And Israel is just a very good example of moving from an innovation to partnership, and we are welcome each and every entrepreneur that can approach to us in order to see how we can make this sector even better.
Excellent. Well, it really strikes a chord of this whole movement away really just from competition to cooperation, and we want to hear more about some of the activities you're playing in that role. Let me move it over now to Tamin, and then we'll go to Susan, and then we'll sort of open it up a bit more. Tamin, I know you've come at the water industry from a number of interesting angles, both in your role as a CEO of Banyan Water, also your chairmanship of Imagine H2O, which is an NGO, and then even your vantage point at Lux Research. Based on your diverse perspective, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about what companies and other stakeholders can do to sort of bring us toward next generation water management. Booky talked a little bit about both the demand and supply side. So let's look at the water management equation and what's kind of happening on that end for companies moving forward.
Sure. Thanks, Ron, and thank you very much for having me. In those roles, I get to see a lot of new supply of good products and services that can enable next generation water management. And what I think we need, and what companies in particular can provide, is an acceleration of the adoption curve of those solutions. The first step, though, and most companies really still are at the first step, is setting mandates to understand how water affects their business today and how water is going to affect their business tomorrow. Setting those mandates is what will catalyze that adoption curve. And I've had a chance to work with a number of Fortune 500 companies on water issues, and these are companies that truly want to lead, and many of them do not yet have a water plan or a water assessment internally within their business or in their supply chains, and how they affect the water ecosystem more broadly. In fact, those that have taken a look at water often look at it in one specific way, and that might be an energy company assessing treatment solutions for produced water, or a real estate company looking at the cost of their water bills. But the key to showing the value of next generation water management, which is what's necessary to accelerate that adoption curve by companies, is looking at water more holistically. Water costs for a company aren't just utility bills. There are a number of vendor and product and service costs that really ought to be grouped together as a company looks at water costs comprehensively. And just as importantly, when companies look beyond their direct costs, they start to evaluate their supply chains, their water-related risks and opportunities, whether it's business continuity risks or reputational risks. You'll see a lot more purchasing demand. And that's where I think companies can really catalyze what we all believe will be next in how water is managed.
Excellent. Let me move over to Susan. You've led the charge at Autodesk, as you mentioned, overseeing the firm's Clean Tech Partner Program. Your digital prototyping is being used by partners across the value chain to speed up and improve their design processes, everything from Tesla's Model S to Sarah Architects' actual federal building, which I got to visit about a month ago right here in Portland, Oregon. So while green building, clean energy, and advanced transport make all the headlines, which they do, water tech has been a bit more in the background. Can you tell us about some of the water companies that are participating in the program and how they're sort of innovating right now in the marketplace?
Sure. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, and I agree in some ways they're getting, the other sectors get the headlines, but at the same time it is definitely very exciting to see what's happening with water. So much innovation that's coming through as enabled by design. And that's really a key tenet of what we believe at Autodesk is that design, this is all really a design challenge to some degree, and right. Dealing with constraints and creating innovation around those. So I'll talk about one example. This is a company that is based in Booky's corner of the world in Israel, a company called Hydrospin. And what's interesting about their solution is basically trying to enable water monitoring devices in areas where there is not ready access to electricity. So if you think about it, there's a great deal of places where we live and we don't have electricity, but of course we have to have water. And being able to decouple the ability to manage and monitor water from electricity is really key, because 30% of all the water that's treated, pumped, and cleaned is lost through that process. There's a great deal of leakage that takes place that's invisible, and without a power source, you can't monitor it. So what Hydrospin did, very, very ingeniously, was create a micro generator. They took advantage of the water flow to create power. So this teeny tiny turbine that can be dropped into pipes without creating a whole other infrastructure, but rather provide localized monitoring for localized water supply. And so these microgenerators allow transmission of data not just once a day, but really almost real time, powering sensors, showing where water loss could be taking place, helping manage water pressure, which also decreases the energy consumption of a utility. So you can learn more about this company, Hydrospin, at autodesk.com/cleantech. There's a case study, and you can see the images of the generators. And the way they used our software was to do some stress testing, because really, how else could you know if a system like this would last for 10 years without putting it into a pipe? So using our software to simulate thousands of hours of stress is very hard for a small startup to do, but they were able to do it and then be able to deploy this solution in lots of places. So enabling localized use of water is a real key towards making water supply more sustainable, and that will become more and more important as climate change changes reliability of water sources, dries them up, as we see happening in a lot of places. And it also is more and more important as population grows.
Great. Well, we're going to get a little bit more into that whole leakage issue that you just talked about. We created a number of infographics for today's webinar, so you guys can all just see that on the screen there. And I wanted to sort of point this one out to Booky. In particular, I think that if you look at this Booky, 70% of the Earth's surface is water, so there's no limit of water, but accessible and fresh water, easily accessible fresh water, is really just a tiny sliver. We've got about 1% of the total water supply coming from groundwater and then freshwater lakes and rivers. And as I point out here, 97.5% salt water. Could you take a minute to talk with us more about the desalination technology breakthroughs that you've been having in Israel and how exportable those are going to be to other places?
Okay, with pleasure. First of all, but I would like to with your permission, to give a short note about what Susan told. Again, Hydrospin is a great company, but as you mentioned that you are now located in Portland, Oregon, there is a great American technology located in Portland, Oregon, Lucid Energy, that do on the same in large scale, meaning creating all the issue of creating energy harvesting from in large pipe diameter. So again, first of all, you have a lot of good technology there in the U.S. Going back to desalination, I think that everything here is related to there is enough water in the world. But I remember when I'm talking with was talking in 2005 with the Chinese water minister. He told me, it's I cannot pay for desalinate water for when I grow up rice, because I need 1 cubic meter per 1 kilogram of rice. And I apologize that I'm talking with cubic meter and with kilogram and not with your size. But no question there's enough water, but all the issue is how to reduce the price of the desalinate water. And there was a huge progress during the last 2 decades as the price of desalination was cut based on improving in technologies in something like 75%. And mainly on reducing the energy cost, implement better technologies, and I hope that now we are moving more to dealing not only with seawater, but try to dealing with brackish water, that the cost of desalination is lower, and there is a very nice implementation here where we are dealing with our national water company, Makarot, desalinate going to area, in a specific area of aquifer, where we have a region of brackish water. We desalinate the brackish water, and then by looking in a comprehensive way, we improve all the aquifer. So when we approach to water, we don't need to think on a trivial solution. All the time looking on a comprehensive approach, find a way where you can improve it. And the journey of desalination here in Israel, again, I assume that we are on after the way. I assume that in the future the price will continue to reduce. We will improve efficiency, and I'm very optimistic about that. But again, when you put desalinate water to the system needs to be very comprehensive, and it's not only question of supply. You need to think how you use the water and not lose 30% of the water in your pipes, etc. But I think that that's something that's related to what my other colleagues.
Is there anywhere where people in our audience could go to learn more about the pricing of desal and sort of the price reduction curve it's been on and where it might be headed? I'm wondering if you have anything like that, or if you know resources where people could go.
Again, I assume that we can supply it offline after this call. I can supply few. It exists, those solutions in the commercial website of the company that are acting in this world. Sure. There are a few, and I'm sure that after this call you can check.
Yeah, and we can do some links. And then the other question I just have about Israel, just to go back to that for 1 second, some new desal plants are coming online. I think the estimates are that we could actually see Israel become a net exporter of water by around 2015 or so. Is that accurate? Is that what you're tracking?
I think that, again, Israel will have enough water. Again, desalinate water is, again, it's one part of the story.
Of course.
But again, we have enough water in this region. And again, as we moving, and you can today price water, and it's not only prayed for rainfall, it changed all the paradigm of the discussion about water. I think that water can be a very good tool for peace. You know, at the past, in a variety of regions, there were a lot of conflict on water, but now when you can begin to deal of pricing the water, because you can produce all the water that you need, it changed all the paradigm about conflict. It's moving from a discussion about rights to discussion about, may I say, a commercial negotiation. And I like this idea that we'll have better world because we implement technologies and now we can begin to negotiate about commercial arrangements.
Excellent. Well, that's a perfect segue into the next infographic. So, we've kind of posed this question, coming water wars, water scarcity and stress. And the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN has said that by 2025, nearly a quarter of the world's population could be living in absolute water scarcity. We could see 2/3 of the world's population under conditions of stress. So, Susan, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the design innovations you're seeing, as Booky said, and it's here in the infographic, not just in desalination, but obviously in drip irrigation, water reuse, and better water management. And then I don't want to just pose it to the whole panel. Can we avoid this whole prospect of water wars, or at least lessen the impact? So, Susan, could you take that first?
Sure. Yeah. The thing that is very interesting in terms of the trajectory over the next couple decades is the effect. I mentioned population growth going from 7 billion to 9 billion projected by 2050, where we, hopefully plateau, and also the effects of climate change, putting more moisture in the atmosphere. And, I have a company to talk about, but I found it very interesting to look at what's happened with the city of Perth in Australia as an example, where it's a dry place, but there has been a dependable water season, a rainy season, that would bring the rain and allow them to have that community there. And what's happened as weather systems have changed and climate has changed, that water rain pattern has moved 100 miles south, and it has really stranded this city in terms of water supply and water security. So the climate is becoming very volatile. Communities can't uproot themselves so easily. So it's really back to that point about local use and trying to find creative other ways to capture water, and being, I guess the point here is, to some degree, I'm agreeing with you, Ron, that yes, you may not face the water shortage now, but things like that are happening. And I think I don't think anyone can sort of rest secure that the water they have known is going to be the water that they will know.
Well, that's right, and water stress can happen very quickly. So,
exactly.
So to both Tamin and Booky, are these technologies and the implementation of some of these technologies going to be somewhat of a holy grail? Will we get beyond some of these huge sort of estimates that we've got up here on the board, or are we pretty much dealing with a very serious, obviously it's a serious situation, but is it going to be one that technology might not be able to answer? Maybe Tamin first?
Sure. There are people who dedicate their academic lives to studying these issues, and while I don't spend all of my time on this issue, I think it's pretty fascinating, and what I'd offer is that all of the technology solutions that are available now and are emerging on the new frontier can absolutely help with these issues, but at the scale that Susan's talking about, where rain patterns shift and you've got infrastructure built for a city and suddenly you need infrastructure to be developed in another portion of the city, technology is one small piece of the requisite answer. And really it's more about policy and government cooperation than technology solutions. Where technology really will come into play is in having some ability to predict with a little bit of advance notice where these shifts are taking place and to reduce the ultimate capital cost and ongoing operational cost to make the changes that are necessary to adjust to changing water availability patterns.
Tamin, you just in 2 sentences, you said technology, policy, and capital, and at Clean Edge we're always sort of looking at those 3 levers. Or those legs of the footstool, however you want to look at it. And I'm wondering, On the policy front, I know this isn't really a policy conversation, but are there some things that you're seeing that are working well on the policy front that might be breakthroughs? I mean, we're constantly tracking that on the energy side. So I'm just wondering if there's some things that you're aware of that we should be looking at.
There are, and I'll throw out a couple. I know that there are a lot more than that, but one that I'm involved with through Imagine H2O, and I know that both Susan and Booky have been pretty involved with Imagine H2O as well, is we're getting ready to launch a policy prize to focus more attention from academics and government officers and so forth who have expertise but haven't necessarily applied that expertise on the policy front to water, to encourage them to do that. And the second is really with the UN and the CEO water mandate. I think there's a coordinated effort to garner attention on this issue and to bring some of the right people to the table to look not just 6 months out, but 15 or 20 years out to do something about the issues that we all see coming.
Yeah, I love the prize piece of that. Can people just go to imagineh2o.org to learn about that?
Yes.
Great. All right. And Tamin, or Booky, do you have anything you want to add to this before we move on to the next question?
Yes, I think that technology is a very important piece, but again, we need to look at it in a comprehensive approach, as the main challenge of the water sector is not the innovation. Innovation is there, you know, in a variety of locations in the world. If it's in Israel, Canada, Portland, you know, you look there, you find or identify innovation. The main challenge of the sector is how to commercialize this innovation and how to partner with this innovation. We call it I2I, stand for innovation to implementation. So we try to cope with it, first of all, to engage part of the policy, the water utility, to this mechanism. So when in 2004 we initiated in Mekorot, the Israel National Water Company, the water program, when you can use the governmental company as a better site for implement innovation, it was change of policy. But again, it was only an Israeli example. Now what we try to do, and I think that again, I assume that there is a lot of relevant audience listen to it, that we try to expand this proven example that we checked something like 700 technologies during the last few years. We try to expand this proven solution worldwide and to make it to the American solution. But I think that then we'll have technology, we'll have support of policy, how to implement these technologies and to scale it up. And that's, I think, that another good component to this discussion.
Excellent. All right. So everyone out there, please, we're starting to get some great questions. I've got a number more. I could go for a long time on this, but I want to get all your questions in. So please start sending those over to the organizer, and Bryce is queuing those up for me, and we appreciate that. And I will get to as many as I can. So this next infographic really brings home a key point. I think we have a noise there. Is everyone okay? Okay. So just like in electricity delivery, a great deal of resources, as Susan mentioned earlier, is lost from the point of the source to the end user. In the developed world, on average, we see about 30% loss. That's from everything from unseen leaks to bad metering or insufficient metering. And in the developing world, the percentage is even higher, 40 to 50%. So I'm wondering, this whole idea of unseen leaks and better detection, Tamin, I know you spend some time in that area. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing sort of with leak detection and with smart meters and just really getting a better handle on the whole management of water supply?
Sure.
Over to you. Yeah.
Sure. What Booky said a moment ago really resonated with me, and I really agree with it, that it's not that we have plenty of technology and we no longer have a technology challenge in the area of leak detection and water management, but there are plenty of proven solutions that can dramatically improve water loss as well as the cost of pipe repairs when they do break. And really it's a challenge of commercializing those technologies while innovators continue to lot of that technology that exists today is underutilized because of policy and financing issues. At a basic level, we have really old water and sewer infrastructure. It breaks a lot. It's hidden underground, so it's hard to see and to repair. And nobody wants to spend money repairing that infrastructure or predictively maintaining it until they absolutely have to. What some of the available technologies do is they turn that hidden system of roots of a water system into effectively a visible computer network using IT and sensors and statistics. And there's an entirely additional category of solutions that smartly repair that infrastructure when it does break. And I think it's interesting that most people think about this as a utility grid issue, but about half the mileage is also on private land where most utilities actually, for regulatory reasons, can't do anything about it. And even there, for instance, Banyan Water, our company, we have a system that monitors water flow for private customers like real estate owners or school campuses and remotely detects and shuts off leaks. There are plenty of companies that have similar technology to do that on the utility grid. But what's needed is a better alignment of financing and policy to encourage adoption of those solutions. If you have a water utility that can recover its costs from ratepayers, and the costs that they're able to recover include the cost of lost water, it's pretty natural to assume that you're going to see a slower adoption of predictive analytics and leak detection. And if you similarly have a city that still has wooden pipes from the 1800s carrying water around, you don't need a computer to tell you that they're leaking. You need some policy and financing alignment to create the right incentives.
Well, that kind of takes me into another question around really the financing piece of this. So what might it look like to, and you keep talking about sort of finance and regulatory in a way, but, and I'd asked this earlier, but can you give us an idea of some type of regimes or schemes that might, speed up, and I know every country is a little different, but that might speed up investment so that we can rebuild our infrastructure? Do we need infrastructure banks? What is it that would help here?
We're going to go first on that?
Yeah, why don't you go first? That'd be great, and then we'll go to Booky and Susan.
Sure, I'll throw a few ideas, and a lot certainly is happening. There's, I think, a real acceleration of public-private partnerships. There's plenty of private capital that's interested in investing in water infrastructure, and so creating the right regimes for that is important. It's happening on a fragmented and regional basis. A couple of things I think would really help. First, I think it would really help to have more decoupling of water rates from water revenues.
Right.
If the revenues that utilities achieve from water sales was not directly linked to the volume of water that they sell, you'd see a lot more demand for these technologies. Second, more variable utility rate structures. There's definitely a trend in this direction, and it's really helping. But plenty of water agencies still charge their users less money the more water that they use. They'll have a high base rate to cover the cost of the utilities infrastructure and their capital investment, and then they just want to sell as much water as they can on top of that. So making rates more punitive for inefficient users would help quite a bit. And third, I think that we could see a lot more government support for water innovation. If a lot of the innovation in energy, including energy finance, stemmed from government subsidies and programs, water could certainly use a similar boost. And again, containing this just to a U.S.-centric view,
sure,
we just don't put a lot of money into that.
And it's really interesting, sort of what you just outlined is very similar to the electric utility space. Do you have good examples of places where we're seeing, and I just don't know this, but hopefully you can point it out, where that decoupling is starting to happen? Are there any utility districts where we're seeing some breakthroughs there?
Yes, it has happened on a regional basis in a number of places. California's been working on this for a while, and there are certainly some others. And it helps, but given the fragmentation of the industry, and harkening back to Booky's comments a moment ago, if you have an innovative technology that could bring us toward next generation water management, it's actually a challenge just to figure out the question that, Ron, you just asked, which is where do you take it? where is the best application for that, because every city is different.
Absolutely. Booky, just to bring this back to you and maybe your experiences in Israel, but what are some of the policy innovations that you think could help move in more investments, more capital into the marketplace?
Okay. First of all, regarding all the non-revenue issue that you mentioned, when I was the co-founder of MIA in 2006, we identified this problem of the huge amount of water that is we are losing on the global base via leaking pipes. And then we initiate MIA, that become the largest solution provider for reducing the losses in infrastructure. But now, first of all, I agree 100% with Tamin, but that's only the first step. I think that the policy is really to find more management tools to run the infrastructure. I don't assume that anyone has enough budget to replace all the pipes. And I don't think that it's necessary. Because again, first of all, you need more sensor in the system that maybe later on you can energize by those technologies that Susan mentioned, like hydrospin. But you need a lot of data to collect the information from the system. Then you need a very good tools to manage the system. And what is so attractive in this sector, that may I say that most of the pieces, the technological pieces, already exist. And I see it in Phoenix, Arizona. I see it in Atlanta. I see it in Canada. I see it, of course, here in Israel in a very advanced way. I see it in the UK. But the mechanism of how to implement it, you don't need to replace pipes. Many times, that's if you have enough management tools to move to smart water infrastructure, smart water infrastructure management. Everything is exist. I'm so enthusiastic about it because I see, and I'm all the time exposed to those technologies, and I'm sure that a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening now to this session have a very good ideas. And the main challenge is how to put all of them on the same platform that other people will understand it and see where it's implementing success manner, because people are looking for this solution. Because of that, I think that what Tamin is doing, what you are doing in Clean Edge is so important to share the information, because it's the most conservative sector in the world, I think, water. But again, when a water engineer in Cincinnati or in Ontario or in London or in Israel look at a specific solution that is working in Arizona, he would like to take it. And I think that that's the role of all those sessions, is to share a proven technologies. That's my, almost mission in my life, to share this information, to leverage the existing information. Again, if it's proven information, proven solution, the other water utility, the other customer would like to adopt it, and then we can bring really the change. And I see it all around the world. So that's my take, following your question and following Tamin.
Absolutely. Let me, Susan, do you have anything to add to that right now, or should we go on?
I just have a couple different points. I think another piece of this is, as communities are creating sort of water portfolios using the different technologies at hand, different solutions, and trying to kind of create a hierarchy around the lowest hanging fruit that's most sustainable before they jump to things like desalination that work but have a lot of consequences. Part of the ability to do that successfully is socializing the different kinds of solutions that are available. And by that I mean, literally convincing the people who are involved, the stakeholders, the city officials, the citizens who live there, the businesses who operate there. And one thing that we've seen successful in that process is the use of visual imagery and 3D models, so that whether it's, and we saw in various cities across the globe, people have come around to the idea of different solutions that they might have rejected without being able to see how they would look and get a sense of whether they would affect the local character, how they would fit into the watershed, et cetera, and also become more comfortable with ways of getting water that before till now, wouldn't necessarily be that appealing, but are completely viable. So the idea of reclaiming water, for example, only 5% of Southern California water is treated and recycled. The rest is just discharged, and there's a huge opportunity to move that back through and reclaim and treat it. And there's plenty of technology that makes that perfectly possible. We have a company called APT Water in the Autodesk Clean Tech Partner Program who is doing a kind of oxidation treatment, and they use our software to build models of the reactors so that they can fit into existing spaces very efficiently. What's exciting about this company is, for example, they are able to remove nitrates from water. So in places like the Central Valley where wells are shuttered because they are poisoned effectively by the fertilizer, they're polluted so much that the groundwater, the drinking water sources are no longer available. APT Water is able to treat this water and put it back into circulation, if you will, and make water that has been kind of closed off as a source viable again. So that's another way of using technology to bring water sources that weren't previously considered viable back into the picture and show people literally what that looks like and make it more palatable to them.
Susan, that even includes, just to clarify, things like the New Water Initiative in Singapore and obviously in Southern California, where they're taking actual wastewater from the toilet and getting it back to the tap, and they do that in different ways. So really interesting potential breakthroughs and things happening there. I think you and I talked briefly, and this to me seemed a bit far-fetched. I've been tracking it a bit for a while, but do you know of any companies that are actually capturing water from the air or the atmosphere and tapping that supply as well? Susan, are you still there?
Yes, there are, and one that I think is really interesting because it involves biomimicry is called, and another Autodesk Clean Tech partner is called NBD Technologies. And they are looking at how Namib desert beetles capture water from the air. And they do this through the way they have a very hydrophilic part of their surface of their body and a hydrophobic, and the contrast between those two at a nanoscale creates a surface that can pull water from the air. And that's the kind of thing that I think is super exciting, and lots of, yes, we have a lot of technology that's just a matter of deploying and implementing, and that's no small task and no small result, but at the same time there's even more interesting possibilities created by these kinds of companies as well.
So thank you for overviewing all that. We're about to move into questions to the audience, but I did want to ask, Booky, you said something really interesting to me, and it is just true of utilities. You said, this is the most conservative industry in the world, and I think the same could be said probably for any of the electric utilities as well, and maybe even more so for water. And as we've tracked this space, it's the domain of very large corporates, the Veolias and the Gs of the world, and they're doing open innovation as well and trying to bring innovation. But really just wondering, because we do have a number of smaller companies on the line today, I'm wondering if you and Tamin could just take a minute before we go into the audience questions to sort of say, what do you recommend to those companies? Because these are slow-moving industries. They're very conservative, as you mentioned. How do you innovate in that environment? So why don't I start with you, Booky, and then go to Tamin, and then we'll go to audience questions.
Okay. First of all, again, I don't want to create a competition who is more conservative, the energy or the water, but the water is the water is conservative, and I think from the good reason, again, because when you mentioned the earlier or that, they are private-owned or public-owned sector in compared to most of the water utilities that is still owned by public servant people that everyone will remember your last mistake, not your last success. And that is the reason why people don't take risks. But nevertheless, I identify on the global scale, you can identify more innovative water utilities that are open for entrepreneurs. So it's, again, you can say that it's a surprise, but I'm not surprised to see that a company from Portland make its beta site in the water program in Israel, and I see it's open, so you can identify, and my recommendation is to identify who are more open for innovation. So you can see in Israel, Makarot, you can see in Canada, OCWA, that's the Ontario Clean Water Agency, that they have a program that are welcoming entrepreneurs. And I see it in Arizona, in everything that is related to the global water resources. They are looking for innovation. They own few utilities there. I know that there's in Akron, Ohio, they are looking for innovation. I know that, again, in Cincinnati, Ohio, they are looking for innovation. I know that in Southern Nevada Water Agency, they are looking for innovation. So my recommendation to the entrepreneurs is really find in this huge sector of more than 250,000 water utilities, you can identify who are the leaders, who are more open to innovation. Try to interact with them. And of course, I will be personally more than happy to introduce each and every innovator or entrepreneur to those utilities. But try to, first of all, to make the better side with utilities that are open for checking your technologies. After you create or gain the first proven reference site, it will be easy for you to move to the big sector, because when you will implement your first solution, then all the big players like Mueller Water Product, like Xylem, it will be very easy to approach them. So again, if I can summary what is my recommendation, identify, and you can see, you mentioned before Singapore, so PUB is open to it as well. So you can identify few water utilities that are more innovative than others, approach to them, they are open for innovation, try to make the implementation there, then after first solution, I assume that the big players will identify you.
And Booky, the Portland, Oregon company, I'm assuming you're referring to Lucid Energy and Greg Summers' firm?
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and that's because when Susan mentioned hydrospin,
exactly,
dealing with energy harvesting in Israel, I must give the credit to Greg Summers that is located in Portland, Oregon.
Absolutely. And just as a background to folks on the call, one of the things that Greg is doing right now is building partnerships with public-private entities and trying to test bed, because I think right now some of the stuff is, not, it could scale, but you need to prove it. So demonstrations are a great way to go. Tamin, could you just give us a quick overview, maybe a minute or so, on what you recommend to entrepreneurial firms in this space right now?
Sure, I'll be quick because I know we want to get to Q&A, but a couple of quick thoughts. First, use Imagine H2O. It's a not-for-profit, and its purpose is to facilitate the go-to-market advancement of innovation in the water sector, and the program has done a lot of the hard work that an entrepreneur would have to go do on his or her own, lined up beta customers, utility partners who have committed to testing and taking meetings with entrepreneurs. So use that program. Secondly, a lot of our conversation has been about utilities as customers, but water is a huge industry with many different customers, only one of which would be a utility. You might face a lot easier of a go-to-market process selling to a different customer, and a utility might help you. A utility might actually help you get to market, selling a solution to a customer at the end point of the utility grid. So it's not just about selling to utilities.
Gotcha. Excellent. So a lot of questions coming in, and this one's a little bit more of an outlier perhaps, but it's been asked a lot, and it's around the whole fracking issue, in particular in the United States. So a number of people, 4 or 5, have asked, do anyone on the panel know about steps that are being taken to reclaim the water from, potentially in fracking, and to resolve any of the big issues that could come up there? So anyone tracking that, Tamin, Booky, Susan, related to water purity and fracking issues?
I can offer a quick comment on that. There's a huge amount of attention and investment going into this. As you can imagine, there's a lot of dollars at stake and a lot of customer interest from oil and gas companies that need solutions to this. So certainly a hot area. I had one executive from a major oil and gas firm tell me that they'd evaluated 700 different technologies to address this issue. And what I think a quick conclusion that comes out of that is a lot of companies are trying to come up with a single point technology rather than a service or a solution. And in order to fix the problem, you need an integrated solution approach. And it's often not about a tweak to a membrane or a monitoring solution. It's about a service provided to a customer to accomplish a particular need. So it's going to be an integrated approach.
Does anyone else want to tackle the fracking issue and the recycling of those waters?
Just one short comment. If there is a demand from your water utility, and again, many times when you are looking, so the entrepreneur will come, but many times it's, and I think the Tamin can cover it, so I don't want to add to it.
So, not surprisingly, a number of questions coming up around sort of the usage side of the equation, and really trying to understand, if I have a company or I'm a city, how I can come up with an integrated water plan. As we know, there are great plans around energy usage, and so I think that the audience is sort of asking this question around where can people go, whether it's for down to the individual level at a home or more organizational-wide or even city-wide, to learn about implementing water plans. Does anyone have any recommendations on where folks might go to get more ideas about best practices on creating water plans?
Ron, this is Susan. I just wanted to drop back in on the previous discussion.
Sure, please.
Not so much fracking as specific, but just a general topic of kind of, there's a notion of embedded water, which can be applied to how much water is used in the manufacturing of a product. But I think you can also look at embedded water in terms of how much water is used to extract and create and deliver energy sources. And I just recently saw an interesting article on Clean Technica that was about the CEO of Masdar, where he was quoted saying water is more important than oil. Interesting, from a oil-rich country. And they authored it an analysis of water efficiency of different energy sources, sort of gallons per kilowatt hour, which I have not seen that put together. So I think it's showing that there's an opportunity to use that as a benchmark, and whether that's fracking or something else, but that's something.
Well, that's a great point, because it's not just about fracking; it's about all of the water usage in fossil fuel and other energy.
Yes, exactly.
That's fascinating. I saw that headline yesterday. Thank you for bringing it up. And if you have access, let's find that link. Maybe we'll put it up on our website, because that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ron,
back to this question on the water planning. Any recommendations to folks on the call?
Ron, I can chime in on that one.
That'd be great. Thank you, Tim.
I think the question broke it down by use case, and I think the solution provider is broken down by use case. So at a city scale, there are a number of large engineering consulting firms that help cities develop water plans. And here in California, there are a number that specialize, for example, in helping cities meet the 20% water reduction by 2020 goals. At a corporate level, that's one of the things that our company does. I'm sure that there are others that can help with the water plan. And at the individual homeowner level, the two best resources are going to be either looking at your own city or utility website. They'll often do a free audit for you, or looking at the EPA website.
Great.
And I would like to add to it, another good organization, the American Metropolitan Water Agency Association, AMWA, that is, again, it's not so a famous organization, but I think that it's one of the most important ones, because it concentrate all the CEO of the public water utilities in the U.S. Again, you can approach to them. I'm sure that what they are doing all the time is sharing practice between metropolitan water utilities in the U.S., and I'm sure that there is the best practices there.
So we have two last questions I want to wrap up with because we're getting close to the end. The first question I want to dig into is that a number of folks have said, look, you know, one of the issues here is that the cost of water is just pretty low. In fact, one of them said it's God-given. So, and it is. I mean, we all need water to survive. So I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about can breakthroughs happen, can innovation happen with relatively low water prices? Do prices need to go up? I know you mentioned earlier, Tamin, that maybe this need for variable utility rate structures. It's a very interesting model. So talk a little bit more about pricing and what you all think about where we're at there, and you know, is that causing some issues in terms of getting more innovation happening on the ground? And open that up to all three of you. Tam, do you want to start just to go in order?
Sure. I think first, yes, water is cheap, but water and sewer are the fastest rising utility expenses in the U.S., so some correction is happening slowly but surely.
And by the way, here in Portland, Oregon, it's definitely happening, but keep going, yes.
But the person asking the question is right. A lot more, obviously, price will drive demand, and solutions will follow that demand. Second, water is priced differently for different types of water and different use cases in different regions. So while municipal water might be really cheap, the ionized water for industrial uses is pretty expensive. And so some of these solutions will gravitate toward where water is priced higher. And third, sometimes it's not the value of water that's driving the acceleration of adoption of next-gen water management solutions. It's the effect of water on other costs or opportunities, whether that's crop yield or avoiding property damage by detecting leaks or other ways that water underlies customer operations.
Great. Booky and Susan,
Yes,
do you want to?
I would like to give you here the Israeli example. In the past, we saw that water is the presence of God, but then we didn't have enough water. So we move, as I mentioned before, from the collection era to production era. We produce our water, and then the citizen here of Israel is paying more for water, but they have all they need. And I assume that when you have enough water, you can say that the price is very low. But as I see this global trend, water price, if you can look at 20 years ago, 10 years ago, now, and 10 years ahead, you will see a very definite increasing rate price. And I assume that as people will evaluate more water, and if no one can stop this trend, there will be more innovation, because innovation and technology that can reduce water production is very essential. And that is the reason why I think that it's one of the most attractive sectors in the world.
Susan, any final comments from you?
There's maybe looking at it also from a point of view of there's the commons aspect of water, and yes, we all deserve and should have adequate water, and when I say us, I mean not only humans but all species, and that should be a factor in how we look at watersheds and our place in them. All life should have adequate water, and I think as to the extent that we as a human race have the most impact on life's use of water, we sort of have a collective responsibility to invest wisely in how we use it and responsibly, so that it works for everyone, and that we don't kind of become penny wise and pound foolish in delaying investments that would benefit everybody now versus get into disaster crisis mode in the future.
Well, I think that we found that a lot in the questions that were coming through. We didn't get to all of them. There were questions also about agricultural use of water, which we didn't get into a lot, although we did a little bit on drip irrigation in Israel. There are also a lot of questions around how we can collaborate. So I want to thank everyone for being on this call today. I hope you found it helpful and informative as I did. I want to thank Susan Gladwin, Tamin, Pechet, and Booky Oren for their time this morning and in helping pull this off, and most importantly for the invaluable insights. I want to thank Autodesk for making this webinar possible. Without them, we couldn't do it. So please note that this webinar has been recorded, and our plan is to post a link on our website either later today or tomorrow. We'll be updating the website with information about upcoming webinars as well, including one in March on natural gas and renewables, friends or foes, and one in April on 3D printing meets sustainability. So thank you again to all of you and to our panelists, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.